rambled on before about the changing climate. We're in the middle of quite an extended period of drought. I suppose today really is about what we can do about it. So we had obviously a very wet winter. We had plants that were pretty much sort of shallow rooting because they had a lot of water, so they weren't having to drive roots down to get water. We then have gone into a really dry period, so it's probably the worst possible combination. From a forage point of view, had quite good yields of first cut and second cut silage and hay, but now we're starting, or farmers are starting to use that hay feeding livestock because basically there's nothing left, particularly in the east. We're seeing, so I suppose two areas, lawns on the whole. Everybody's lawn is dead and dying or going backwards, and to an extent it will recover, but there's a lot of things we can do to help that. And secondly, with forage, there's two elements. There's possibly replacing worn out leys that really this weather has killed off, or sowing short-term grass to create forage. So if we talk about lawns first, so I suppose part of the purpose of these videos is to educate, but also to encourage people to buy seed, because that's what we do. I think we sell seed, don't we? Is that on me?
I think so. I think that's why I'm employed.
Oh, is that why you're employed? So yeah, so the opportunities with lawn seed, UK, nearly 85% of the seed we sell for lawn seeds and for sports pitches actually for what we call overseeding. So traditionally as a nation we do a lot of overseeding because we like lovely lawns and lovely pitches and lovely landscape areas. So I think there's an opportunity to do a lot of overseeding. I suspect the way that's going, it's going to be end of August into September and October. We mustn't forget that the planting season can go on quite late. I think we're seeing traditionally we would stop sort of middle end of October, but we're seeing open weather and no frost really through into sometimes into November. So sometimes it's worth risking later sowings. Overseeding takes lots and lots of different formats, so you can do it. So sports pitches, they might actually stitch it in using a drill where they incorporate into the existing sward, or it may be a question of actually broadcasting the seed onto the top and then harrowing it or rolling it in. So I suppose my view and experience is anything is better than nothing, and certainly if you want to keep an amenity area, whether it's your lawn or landscape area, looking nice and smart, then overseeding is a really good option. Probably the autumn, assuming you've got ryegrass in the mix, ryegrass is a really good option. It's quick growing, it's resilient, and it really needs to get established before we get into the winter and we get frosts that affect it. Forage is a very different situation, so I think we're certainly seeing on some of our farms longer term what we call leys, so grass mixtures have been down for a long time, a lot of them wearing out. This weather's sort of the final death knell for them, and probably the sensible thing to do would be to round up them off and then to cultivate and reseed with a totally fresh mixture. What we don't see with grass is that as leys or mixtures wear out, so yield potential, resilience really drops off. So actually the economics of reseeding are really good, and you can get more production off the same area. And the danger is just because it's green, you leave it and think, well, it looks green, and then you realise actually the productivity off it, and you can measure that with numbers of bales of hay or trailers of silage or livestock grazing days. So that's one area where I think there's going to be a lot of reseeding. The second one is I think forage is going to start to get short. I was talking to an old colleague of mine who's a hay and straw dealer this morning, and the price of hay, having hit a bit of an all-time low, is creeping up. Reason being that although there was a really, really good harvest, we're seeing a situation where farmers are using a lot of that surplus up for feeding livestock in the field. And if we've got another 1, possibly 2 weeks of this weather, that will just accentuate the whole situation. So I think what we'll see is people putting in things like stubble turnips are going in after wheat crops. They're what we call brassica, so they create a turnip that's got a bulb and then it's got a green top. They use them mainly for sheep grazing, fattening sheep. The other options are short-term grasses like Western Wales ryegrass, Italian ryegrass, hybrid. Other options are things like forage rye. So to fill that gap, I think we may see really good consumption on those what we call short-term grasses. So I'm really optimistic. I've been in this industry bizarrely 39 years tomorrow, and for me, I remember 1990 was a really interesting year. We had a similar weather conditions, and it's almost unbelievable, bearing in mind how quiet everybody is at the moment. In the end, we were actually rationing seed, so demand was so high because so much of the grassland in the UK had been burnt off in a very hot summer that in the end we were having, to say to customers, I'm really sorry, you want 10 tonnes, you can have 5. Now, whether it's quite that extreme this year, I don't know, but I think we will see suddenly when there's a possibility of some rain on the horizon, I think then it will really take off. So I suppose the call to action is ring the amazing commercial team at All Things Rural, book now to avoid disappointment. The other thing to mention is obviously we've been harvesting our crops over the last few weeks, and okay, most of what we do is traditionally is flowers and forage legumes and things like millets, but I've been actually quite surprised at how low yields have been. Where we're growing winter wheat, we're sat on the farm at Willicott today. We've just harvested 80 acres of Skyfall winter wheat, and talking to Steve, who's driving the combine, he was saying that it's sort of still in tonnes an acre. He thinks about 3 tonnes an acre, which for quite heavy land here is quite disappointing. But in this year, I think that could be a really good yield. Talking to some people down in Wales yesterday, they were talking, 2 tonnes an acre, 5 tonnes a hectare. So that's, bearing in mind the world record for wheat is 17.1 tonnes a hectare. It's a big hit. So I suppose you've got this sort of perfect storm. You've got a very quiet time now because who's going to buy grass seed when it's so dry? That's going to be followed, I think, by a period of really intense consumption. But new crop, so harvest 2026, pretty much all over the world, I think seed is going to be short and consequently prices will creep up. So I'm not trying to do the hard sell, but I think people, we need to have a bit of confidence, it will come. And I think we'll start to see prices creeping up. So if people have got stock, there's an opportunity to make a little bit of a gain on that. But they'll have to be really careful that when they go back into the market and we have the same issue, we could find that prices are a lot higher. But these markets change really quickly. And you're right, if people want things, they really want specific varieties, cultivars, species. My suggestion is they really need to get on with it and get it secured because, there isn't a bottomless pit of seed. There is certainly not surplus anywhere in the world. And, assuming we get some decent consumption, it will vanish very quickly.